Did you know if you're disabled, that you feel you're disabled? You might even have doctor's notes. You just walk in to the government, wherever that may be, and they will hand you a check. There's so much fraud you wouldn't even believe it. Someone commented this on my post. It's something their mother has said to them many times, and they're disabled. And I wish I was horrified because it's uncommon, but no, I've heard that so often. And it always kicks me back to a discussion I had in 2008 before I had rheumatoid arthritis. I was living at a very cheap hostel in North Hollywood. And there was this older Australian woman. Most of us were in our 20s. She was like 30. And she said, "Why are these kids freaking out over a food bank? Like, don't they have food stamps?" And I explained to her how hard this, by the way, remember, this before Obamacare and making those things easier to get. She says, why don't they go on the dole? Why don't they get, unemployment? And I explained that many of us would never qualify. You needed, I don't think it's changed. You needed a full-time job to get unemployment. And she just looked at me horrified, and she said, "In Australia," now again, I don't know if this is still true, but I believe her from what I've read up at the time anyway. She said, "You go to the dole office, you sign up, you tell what's going on, and you can get money that day." I was like, now again, she's not saying riches, but food money. And good Lord, I wish we had that system, because I don't know the amount of money government has spent trying to suss out fraud, which has never been even a double digit number over the years. But it's well known that most governments, including the American and British governments, spend more money trying to make sure disabled poor people either don't get benefits or get penalized for having an extra $5 or pounds than, helping them. You can eliminate that whole office and a lot of money to open up. But then what would happen to the bureaucrats? They can get fucked. Thank you very much. I'll tell you, at the time, because shortly after I did apply for food stamps since 2011, at the time in California, I had to physically go meet the people. I have very bad anxiety and neurodivergence. I blagged it off. And then I applied a few years later, I think 2012, in Utah, which I know. But somehow I got it. It was right before they really cut down on giving food stamps. And it was only like $80, but I was so poor, I was happy to get it. That lasted about a year. Then nobody could get it after that. As for unemployment, I've had maybe 10 jobs in my whole life, retail jobs, some as much as 35 hours a week. Not one goddamn drop of unemployment ever. And my sister number 2, who's worked, and 3, have worked many, many jobs where they worked really, really hard. And even sister number 2 could never fully get full time until she got a job with the VA, the government, because it was always 35 hours. No unemployment. Not one sister has ever gotten unemployment, and most of us are 30 or over. That's not a good system, man. And that's not just for disabled people. That's for all people in America. Speaker Mike Johnson, minority of some bullshit. I can't remember if it's House or Senate. Everybody hates him, including the Republicans. He's got a plan to cut billions from Medicaid and Medicare if Trump gets in and or they get the majority next year. You might go, how can they do that? There's so little money there, and there's your answer. Because it's very popular to say, I'm cutting corporate taxes. Trump's cuts, there was a list of them. Most corporations in the United States went from paying about 20%, which, by the way, they should be paying over 60%, but, loopholes for the rich. And most of them went from 20 to like 3% or 1%. Then they cut the benefits to us. Do you know how a society is supposed to actually work? A society is supposed to be for everybody in a society. Like, homeless really should not exist in a good society. Should be, damn, you have drug, alcohol, mental problems. You're really poor, this happened to you, you're living in your car, let us help you. Because every time they've done studies of UBI, universal basic income, or giving homes to the homeless, they have very few recidivism, I can never say that word, going back rates. Most people stay employed and housed. In fact, there was a very famous case that just happened in New York. A mentally ill man who could not get a bed in a hospital because of his mental illness. Like, there just wasn't beds. He was put out on the streets. He pushed an innocent woman who didn't even know him into an oncoming subway train. And her parents are fighting to make more beds available in these hospitals because that would have prevented her death. When you go to a city and you see a bunch of homeless people and they're not just sitting there politely, now some do, of course, where they're talking to themselves, they might chase you, etc. That's not even so much drugs. I mean, drugs exist, but it's a lot of mental health problems because that's what happened with Reagan. He cut the VA and he cut sanatoriums and state institutions for people like that. Where did they go? The streets. So this is not a society, man, especially one based on Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, if Jesus fucking Christ was alive today and we call ourselves a Christian nation, I'm not, but they claim that, he would just get so fucking angry. He'd probably go on a killing spree. He'd be like, you're telling me there's homeless and hungry people and sick people, and you're ignoring them, but you give all this money to these pastors who can wear $6,000 sweaters? Oh, he'd be so mad. Like, I know everything with the conservatives is obviously just bullshit, but it almost hurts my brain when they're like, oh, we love Jesus so much, we're going to take the queer books out of the schools. That'll solve all our problems. So, as per the mother mentioned previously, no, that's not how it works. Here's how it actually works. I was lucky and got it on the first try. It took 2 years because of COVID, and also backlogs because I was already backlogged before COVID. And the law of the United States is I get $2,000 once every 6 months until the third check, which is the remainder. It cost $5,000 for my lawyers. I got about $15,000. So it goes 2 and 2. A whole year has passed. I've only got 4. I have 8,000 left. Maybe I got 13. Well, after the money. Maybe I got about 15 or 16 total, and that was 13. Something like that. And then the final check was 8,000. So it took a year and a half to get the bulk of my money. I didn't even get that much money. Like, they only counted it from 2020. Despite so much proof I've been sick longer than that. Like, I was first diagnosed in 2008, 9. They're like, well, it's going to be hard to prove. So yeah, no, you don't just walk in and get money. It takes a year and a half to get all your money. And it takes years to get your money assigned to you to begin with.